Good morning and good evening. So good morning in Europe, in the Netherlands, and good evening in Fiji, in the Pacific Ocean. So today we have a match of the day 2. Actually, this is the first match of day 2, of all day 2 match, between two teams who received the topic a week ago, and they will be debating this time in this group B for their second match. So we have the team from the University of the South Pacific, and we have the team from the Hague University of Applied Science. So before jumping into the match, of course, as usual, we'll ask them to introduce themselves, and we thank as well the judge for watching this video. So now I would like to give the floor to Johnny Normani in Fiji. Welcome.
Good morning, everyone, and good evening to those who are watching in Fiji. My name is John Nomani. You can call me John. It's easier that way. And I'm a final year law student here at the University of the South Pacific. And I wish everyone all the best in this match.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you.
We have as well Miss Aya Misawi in The Hague. Welcome.
Hi, good evening. I'm Aya. I'm a law student at The Hague, at THIULDT, and I wish everyone good luck too.
Thank you, welcome. We have as well Miss Bhavna Mala in Fiji. Welcome.
Good morning, everyone, and good evening to the ones who are watching us online. My name is Bhavna Mala, and I'm also a final year law student at University of the South Pacific. Thank you. Oh, and I wish all the very best to everyone.
Thank you, welcome. We have as well Miss Julia Anna Mishna in The Hague. Welcome.
Hello, my name is Julia. I'm second year a student in the Hague University of Applied Sciences, and I'm looking forward for this debate.
Thank you, welcome. And we have as well Miss Catherine Maima Singh in Fiji.
Hi everyone, I'm Catherine. I am a fifth year law student, and this is also my final semester at the University of the South Pacific, and I just can't wait for this match to begin. Thank you.
Thank you, welcome. And we have as well Mr. Hassan Alawi. Welcome.
Good morning or good afternoon. I'm a second year law student at TUAS, and likewise, I can't wait for this debate to begin. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we send greetings as well to the coach. So we have two coaches on the side of the University of the South Pacific. We have Shivendra Nath. I don't know if you can hear me. You can open the microphone, of course, in case you hear me. But we send you.
I can hear you, Mr. Lawrence.
Bula
from
Bula.
Fiji.
Bula.
Thank you.
Welcome. And we have as well Adi Salaseini Gunolevu, former participant, I remember. And as well on the side of the University we have Miss Montero and Mr. Sayed Altamash Khalil. So now for this match we received the topic. The topic was states must establish binding cooperative global waste management regime pursuant to the customary international obligation to prevent transboundary environmental harm. So my colleagues have shared the screen. As you can see, there are two chances for this match. One chance to be in favor, one chance to be against the motion. So now we will see who will be in favor or against, and the team in favor will be starting with the first introduction. For this match, the Hague University of Applied Science will be against the motion, while as a consequence, the University of the South Pacific will be in favor of the motion. Concretely, it means the University of the South Pacific will defend the position that states must establish binding cooperative global waste management regimes pursuant to the customary international obligation to prevent transboundary environmental harm. In the meanwhile, the Hague University of Applied Science will defend the position that states must not establish binding cooperative global waste management regime pursuant to the customary international law obligation to prevent transboundary environmental harm. Now you have 5 minutes to review your notes, and then we hear the introduction by the University of the South Pacific.
Thank you, everyone. Your time for final preparation has now passed. We'll proceed by hearing the opening statements with the team in favor. But before we proceed to do that, I would kindly ask you all to ensure that you can see our timekeeper for the match and co-host Ms. Lal. She will be giving you indications in regards to your remaining time. Yellow for 30 seconds remaining, and red for when your speaking time is up. When you see red card, comfortably conclude your sentence. It is not recommended to start a new one. And thus, without further ado, University of South Pacific debate team, you have 4 minutes.
What's your name? Say.
Honorable judges, my dear colleagues, for small island developing states like Fiji, this issue is not abstract. It is survival. Waste generated abroad enters our waters, destroys our reefs, and threatens our livelihoods. The question is not whether cooperation is desirable, but whether international law requires binding global action to stop that harm. So the motion asks, does customary international law's obligation to prevent transboundary environmental harm require states to establish binding cooperative global waste management regimes? We say yes. Waste is inherently transboundary, and only binding cooperation can fulfill the quote-unquote no harm principle. Now, customary law is decisive. In the Trail Smelter of 1941, it stated, and I quote, "No state has the right to use its territory in such a manner as to cause injury to another." The Corfu Channel of 1949 also states the ICJ imposed a duty of due diligence. Pulp Mills of 2010, the ICJ confirmed environmental impact assessments are customary law. And the ITLOS Climate Change Advisory Opinion, UNCLOS obligations apply broadly to marine pollution and demand global cooperation. Now, these cases prove prevention is not optional. It is binding law. Waste is a global by nature. Plastics circulate through oceans, hazardous spills cross borders, and e-waste flows from developed to developing states. Existing treaties such as the Basel, Bamako, Waingani, MARPOL, and the London Convention show partial cooperation, but enforcement is weak and mostly voluntary. Illegal waste trade continues. Customary law requires stronger regimes, binding enforcement, cooperative monitoring, and harmonized obligations under VCLT Article 30 and CVD Article 22. The Pacific has already acted. The Waingani Convention of 1995 prohibits hazardous waste imports into island states. Now, despite limited resources, small nations accepted binding rules to protect themselves. If the Pacific can act collectively, the world has no excuse. Binding regimes are proven. Germany's extended producer responsibility system, Japan's recycling laws, and Australia's national waste policy all enforce binding standards. Regionally, Waingani shows even small nations can cooperate effectively under binding regimes. Now, because waste is inherently transboundary, only binding cooperative regimes can fulfill the no harm obligations. Now, I have laid the foundation. My teammates will dismantle rebuttals, and our last speaker will conclude by reaffirming that binding global regimes are the only way to meet international law's duty of prevention. The law must protect us from harm. No single country can prevent a law. Waste crosses borders, so must responsibility. Binding cooperation is not optional. It is the law, and it is survival. And if we fail to act now, the damage will not wait. It will define our future. And I thank you.
Thank you. We'll now pass the floor to the against team by the Hague University of Applied Sciences. You also have 4 minutes for your opening statement.
Honorable judges, dear opposition, imagine the river that once was contributing by giving water, food, or life. Now imagine the same water, the same river that is carrying chemicals, plastics, and other toxic waste downstream across the borders into the water, food, and bodies of the people that didn't contribute to the waste. The seriousness of this problem is not in the dispute. The legal conclusion drawn from it is. My name is Julia, and together with Aya and Hassan, we're going to represent the opposition of the motion. This debate turns on one precise legal question. That's the customary obligation to prevent transboundary environmental harm requires states to establish a binding global waste management regime. We submit that it does not. First, the no harm rule establishes an obligation of conduct, not institutional design. In the trail smelter arbitration, states were prohibited from allowing activities within their jurisdiction to cause significant transboundary harm. The International Court of Justice reaffirmed in pulp mills on the River Uruguay that prevention of significant transboundary environmental damage forms part of general international law. But these authorities define the objectives: prevention of significant harm without prescribing the structural means of achieving it. The obligation is one of due diligence. States must act reasonably and proportionally in the light of risk. Customary international law sets behavioral standards. It does not mandate a specific global governance structure. Secondly, international responsibility is grounded in attribution and causation, not collective liability. Environmental harm often results from multiple contributors acting at different times and in different ways. International law requires that responsibility to correspond to contribution, and mandatory global regime risk weakening that link by replacing individual responsibility with diffuse collective obligations. Such a shift would undermine sovereign equality and legal certainty, foundational principles of the international legal order. Thirdly, customary international law requires reasonableness, not guaranteed elimination of the harm. In the Gaptikovo-Nagmiris project, the court emphasized that states must act reasonably and in a good faith. International law does not demand perfect prevention, nor does it prescribe one universal mechanism as the exclusive means of compliance. Cooperation already exists through instruments such as the Basel Convention, MARPOL, and UNCLOS. The central challenge lies in its implementation and enforcement, not in the absence of legal frameworks. Finally, customary international law develops through consistent state practice, accompanied by opinion jurists. There's no uniform and settled practice recognizes a legal duty to create a single binding global waste management regime. Expanding custom in that matter would exceed established doctrine. As honorable judges, the duty to prevent transboundary harm already exists, but the duty remains one of reasonable conduct grounded in attribution, proportionality, and consent. There's the no harm rule demands responsibility, not centralization. For those reasons, we respectfully thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. We have heard the opening statements. Now we will hear the first rebuttals, starting with the team in favor. USB, you have 2 minutes.
It's mute. Oh, sorry. Honorable judges, the negatives river analogy collapses under international law. Trail Smelter 1941 held that once harm crosses borders, every affected state has rights, even if they did not contribute to the pollution. Corfu-Chanel 1949 confirmed a positive duty to due diligence. States must prevent foreseeable harm, not wait to see who caused it. Customary law protects victims, not polluters. They argue we misinterpret the no harm rule, and the Pulp Mills 2010 proves us wrong. But Pulp Mills does the opposite. The ICJ held that environmental impact assessments must be shared with affected states, making cooperation a legal requirement, not a choice. Prevention under customary law is inseparable from cooperation. Their claim that states can act alone ignores the nature of waste. Plastics, chemicals, and e-waste move exactly like their river across borders, harming states that never contributed. And that is why UNCLOS Articles 192 and 194 impose binding duties to protect the marine environment, and why the ITLOS Climate Change Advisory Opinion 2023 to 2024 confirmed these duties must be carried out cooperatively. The Pacific already understands this. The Waingani Convention 1995 shows small island states choose binding rules to protect themselves, and Fiji's constitution, Section 40, obliges the state to protect the environment, sovereignty exercised collectively. The negatives analogy proves our point. When harm flows across borders, voluntary action fails. Customary law demands prevention, and prevention demands binding cooperation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Hague University of Applied Sciences, you had 2 minutes for your first rebuttal.
Am I visible and heard?
You are.
Thank you very much. I'd like to begin. My colleagues arguing in favor of this motion make some very credible points when seen in isolation. The trail smelter arbitration, the Corfu Channel case, and the pulp mills cases are all vital in establishing a sort of binding regime. However, when you take these cases and actually expand on them, you come to the conclusion that although cooperation is recommended and in some cases required, a binding regime is never mentioned. For a binding regime to be supported by international customary law, two things are required, as my colleague stated. First, state practice, and second, opinio juris. The trail smelter case establishes that, yes, there is individual state responsibility for transboundary harm. It was bilateral and based on attribution and gave compensation. So rather, for example, stating that this creates a sort of framework for a global regulatory authority, it merely confirms the polluter pays principle, which was further expanded on in Article 16 of the Rio Convention, which states that 1. National authorities are urged in principle to control and to charge the cost for control and cleanup of any environmental disaster or pollution to the party responsible. This provides a more equitable framework rather than blaming the state and or setting binding rules for states to follow, as the polluter, for example, could be a large multinational company, especially in the cases of developing countries such as, for example, Pakistan, where large environmental disasters or pollution effects occurred due to these large multinational companies. Thank you.
Thank you very much. University of South Pacific, you have 2 minutes for your second rebuttal.
Thank you. The negative argues that cooperation is required, but binding regimes are not. But the very cases they rely on show that cooperation under customary law is not voluntary. It is a legal duty that must be operationalized through institutions. Trail Smelter held that once harm crosses borders, states must prevent and control that harm. Corfu Channel imposed a positive duty of due diligence, not passive cooperation. And pulp mills, which they claim supports them, actually held that EIAs must be shared with affected states, proving that prevention requires structured institutional cooperation, not isolated domestic action. They invoke state practice and opinio juris, but the practice they cite proves our point. The Basel Convention, Article 4, London Protocol, Article 3, Marpol, and the Waingani Convention, 1995, are all binding cooperative regimes that states have already accepted. That is opinio juris. States believe binding cooperation is required to prevent transboundary waste harm. They rely on Rio principle and polluter pays, but compensation is remedial, not preventative. Costa Rica and Nicaragua shows compensation comes after harm. Customary law requires prevention, not waiting for damage and then sending a bill. Finally, the Pacific's own Waingani Convention and Fiji's Constitution, Section 40, show that sovereignty is exercised collectively to protect people and ecosystems. The negative's own authorities show that prevention and cooperation are binding duties. And when harm is transboundary, cooperation without binding regimes is meaningless. Customary law demands effectiveness, and effectiveness demands binding cooperation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The Hague University of Applied Sciences, you have 2 minutes for your second rebuttal.
Thank you very much. The team in favor argues that our use of pulp mills and our use of the Corfu Channel case and Trail Smelter are misguided and misused, that we misconstrued the findings from these cases and used them to develop a case that lies on malice. We completely disagree with this. I'd like to just lightly focus on pulp mills, upon which moving on. Pulp mills clarifies clearly, yes, that there is a required environmental impact assessment and there is procedural cooperation. However, it did not state that, for example, Argentina or Uruguay required to harmonize standards or create a sort of regime that was binding on both parties. Just merely the fact that both parties have to consult each other and conduct tests to ensure the environment was not harmed. Yes, the idea in principle of polluter pays may not cause the required effect of preventative measures. Or when large companies or large organizations that are transboundary and work in multiple states see the harm or the effect of pollution is an extreme and adverse fine, they are more likely to follow the rules and prevent this pollution. So I'd like to move on as well. Secondly, a global binding waste management regime may not in reality achieve the solution that the team in favor wants to achieve. Firstly, based on the Fair Resources Foundation, exporters and traders are likely to just play with the definition of waste. Already, by recategorizing it as resource for recycling or other definitions, they may bypass legal restrictions that are binding. High-income countries currently generate over 34% of waste, but face an inability to manage it due to local and domestic restrictions. So what do? They send it. Thank you very much. They send it to countries such as Turkey, etc. Thank you.
Thank you. We have now heard the rebuttals from the two teams. Proceeding to hear the concluding statements. University of South Pacific, you have 2 minutes for the in favor position.
Thank you very much. That is well noted. Honorable members, the negative says we misuse their cases, but when we look closely, their own authorities confirm the very principle they deny. Pulp mills did not say states may act alone. It says environmental impact assessments must be shared with affected states. That is cooperation in a structured institutional form. Trail Smelter and Corfu Channel both impose duties that cannot be fulfilled in isolation. They say responsible parties should pay, but compensation comes after harm. Costa Rica and Nicaragua shows that clearly. For us in the Pacific, after is too late. When a reef dies, when a fishery collapses, when waste washes onto our shores, no amount of compensation can restore what is lost. Prevention is the only meaningful remedy, and prevention requires coordinated binding rules. We are not playing the victim. We are speaking from experience. Fiji's constitution, Section 40, gives every person the right to a clean and healthy environment. That right means nothing if the harm comes from outside our borders and no one is bound to prevent it. Customary law demands prevention, and when harm crosses oceans, prevention demands cooperation that is real, enforceable, and shared. We stand here not out of anger, but out of necessity, because for us, this is not theory, it is survival. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now to hear the concluding statements for the against position, Hague University of Applied Sciences, you have 2 minutes.
Honorable judges, At what point does legal expectation become a legal fiction? Imagine a river lined with warning signs, no dumping, protected waters. The rules are written, but enforcement fails. The river becomes polluted not because there were no rules, but because no one enforced them. And instead of stopping those who pollute most upstream, the proposed solution imposes identical obligation on every state along the river. First, the proponents confuse responsibility with centralization. International law already requires states to prevent harm, whereas it does not prescribe one single global system. The no harm rule and due diligence require reasonable action and not a mandatory global institutional structure. A binding global regime risks replacing workable solutions with one rigid model which cannot be realistically implemented. Secondly, even where rules exist, enforcement fails. We already have environmental treaties and national legislation in most countries, yet pollution persists. The problem is not the absence of law, it is the implementation gap. A new treaty cannot replace political will, administrative capacity, or the functioning of domestic enforcement. Third, the regime may create unintended consequences. Economic disparities mean many developing states lack the infrastructure to meet strict global standards. Tougher restrictions often increase smuggling and illegal trafficking, and instead of preventing pollution, the waste is simply relocated to weaker jurisdictions or underground markets, which we can see in South Asia and Turkey. And so the result is predictable. The signs multiply, the legal frameworks expand, and the reports improve, but the river remains polluted. Honorable judges, the duty to prevent harm should not be confused with the creation of one universal system that many states cannot effectively enforce. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you to both teams. Well done on presenting and researching your statements. You can all now relax. You are no longer graded after this part. We will proceed for the next part of today's session, passing to Ms. Lal for that part. Well done.
Thank you, Ms. Urbanova, and once again, good job to both teams. We will first start off with a quick reflection on the match, starting all the way from the preparation stage to now in how the match was. So yeah, so let us know how the preparation was. Perhaps you had similar cases. So starting off with Mr. Chone Nomani, please.
Hello, everyone. I hope you're all doing great. Well, this is my first match for me because our first match I was not available, unfortunately. But to me, it's a great opportunity. It's a great experience. I've only participated in internal moot courts and also internal debate. So to be able to hear and compete with some of the best from other universities is a great experience, and I hope this is not the last. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. Could we hear from Miss Aya Misawi, please?
Can you guys hear me? Okay. Honestly, I feel as if this debate was like much funner than the last one. The preparations were better, and I feel I'm not gonna lie, like I'm trembling, like shivering in my timbers. But I actually found it very enjoyable. So I'm looking forward to the next matches, and I wish everyone good luck.
Thank you, Miss Misawi. Could we hear from Miss Bhavna Mala, please?
Okay, hi everyone. This match's preparation was, I feel like it was better than the first one. This is my second match, and I also really enjoyed the match between this university because it was really interesting, and I like the points that you guys raised. So yeah, and I look forward to the next matches as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Could we hear from Miss Yulia Michna?
Yes, as Aya said, I also enjoyed this match probably a bit more, and I think the preparation went more smoothly as it was our second match. And as the other team said, I really enjoyed the match, and I really liked the points they made. I think they're really valuable.
Thank you. It's great to hear that both teams are really enjoying this match. Miss Catherine Singh, would you like to elaborate on anything in particular?
Well, the topic was relevant. We did a lot of research for both the affirmative and negative, and whatever the negative team raised, we had. That was, if we were the negative, we would definitely raise those points. But I think we did way better than our first match. We were a bit nervous in our first match. We were lacking one member. So yeah, we were kind of worried. But I feel like this research was well prepared. And yes, I have been part of moods and debates, but not an international level. And this is a really great experience. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Singh. And finally, Mr. Hassan Alawi, please.
I'd like to thank my colleagues in both my team and the other team. I think this was a very nice debate. We articulated our points well, achieved our conclusions well. And I would like to mention, we really did also, when we were doing the arguments for, there were a lot of arguments that we all shared. However, I would like to also mention, this debate went a lot better than the other one. Our preparation was a lot better. And I find that the colleagues from the University of South Pacific were very, very good in articulating the points, and I'd like to thank them for, allowing this opportunity to occur. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your reflections. Now moving on to the networking portion. So the first question is, have you watched other matches in this tournament or previous editions? And is there something that particularly impressed you or challenged you? So maybe first starting off with the team from the University of the South Pacific, all members are welcome to chime in. So whenever you're ready.
Well, yes, in preparation for our first match, which unfortunately I was not available on, but in preparation of this match, I did watch previous matches, and also I did watch the Hague's matches in the first match, just to see, where they were strong and where they were the strength in that first match. So that's how we literally prepare. Well, the challenges I didn't really see. I think the network was a challenge for some for previous matches. But yeah, everything went great. We just need to improve in our research again, because the topic, as we go on and go further in the matches, then the topic will definitely become more and more sensitive and a little bit difficult and needs more research. So yes.
Okay, do any of the other members of the USP team have anything to add?
I just watched a few. Yeah. So I did watch USP's past matches, and I'd say that we're on the same track, and I think every year we progress, we're getting better. Yes, I think in 2024 there were not many teams, and then last year there were more, and this year there are more than 30 teams. And that's actually a big thing. And honestly, I'm really proud of USP for taking part. Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Same question to the Hague Uni. Have you been watching other matches? Again, open to all members.
Yeah, I've watched quite a few matches already, and I know my colleagues have as well. Especially, I did see the recent match with Chile and the University of South Pacific, and of course, I watched some matches from our uni and other unis from the past years, and yeah.
Yeah, so the same counts for me. I've watched a few matches. I do feel like the longer we get into this competition and the more that we progress, the more that we have to watch the videos, so you can kind of see a pattern on how they rebuttal like certain arguments and how they argue, etc. Yeah, actually, besides that, I think the only thing that we need to improve on, or actually not we, like I need to improve on, is maybe create more arguments that are beyond like the UN and just like things that are general, you know, because I do feel like as today we had a lot of arguments already prepared for and against, and they aligned a lot with the pro side that we had prepared too. And I feel like that could be a disadvantage for later competitions, because if everyone knows what arguments you're going to give, then it's going to be a bit harder to rebut. But besides that, actually, I'm looking forward to it. Okay, bye.
Thank you so much. Now for the second and last question. What skill or aspect of legal reasoning do you feel you are developing the most through the competition? So again, starting off with the team from USP, all members are, feel free to chime in. I'll repeat the question again. What skill or aspect of legal reasoning do you feel you are developing the most through the competition?
So we did in our first match, which our two lovely ladies competed on. They did some research and they did very well, which obviously won us the match. But they were, because we had to read the judge's decision as well. So, some of the judges asked if we used case and what's the purpose of using the case, even though we did leave it there. But then those are the things that we will focus on. Giving out cases as law students, we need to find the principles of why you're using those cases and how it's relevant to the topic of the day. So yes, those were some of the things that we learned, and hopefully we progress from here. And we wish the rest of the team good luck in their third match.
Okay, thank you so much, and thank you for sharing the importance of case laws. Now for the same question for the team for the Hague University of Applied Sciences.
I think that one of the skills that I will most likely develop or improve would be legal research and articulating the arguments. Oh my gosh, and by the way, you guys are so nice. That's so sweet of you. But yeah, so I think speaking too, because I was like very scared, especially after the first debate. So I think I will be more confident in speaking and more confident in the research that I do. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much to both teams. That concludes the networking portion of this match. Once again, all the best to both teams as you progress through the competition, and handing it back over to Professor Larange to close up the match. Thank you.
Yes, yes. Congratulations for your second match. I understand now that you are in the dynamic, and now you are plenty fully in the competition. So it was really nice to see as well the improvement as well. You check, of course, what's said by the judge. So well done for the second match already, and of course the third match would be great as well. So yes, so I would like as well to tell that in your group B, the last match will be of course for each team. On one side, the University of South Pacific will have a match against the University of Colombo in 2 weeks, and the University of Applied Science will have the match against the University of Chile in 2 weeks. And then it will be time for wrapping up the group phase, then a little break with a networking session, and that's why I encourage all of you to keep contact. You never know if the Hague team will be visiting Fiji one day. Myself, I've been in Fiji, so I can tell it's a great place as well. Or if, as well, the team from Fiji will come to The Hague. So then you will be meeting in person. So please, do not hesitate to keep contact, or let us know if you want to be in contact. And I wish you the best for the rest of the week. So many thanks in Fiji and in The Hague, and we keep in touch, and looking forward for your third match. Thank you, bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, bye-bye.
Bye.
Good luck with your